Welcome to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast, where we redefine what it really means to lead. I'm your host, TaSheena Braxton, executive leadership and team coach, systems thinker, and champion for equity-driven leadership. This isn't your typical leadership podcast. Here, we go beyond job titles and performance metrics to explore how leadership shows up in the everyday, through relationships, values, decision-making, and the way we build systems that work for everyone. You'll hear real stories, unfiltered truths, and powerful insights that challenge the status quo. Because the world doesn't need more traditional leaders, it needs braver ones. So, let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. And let me start this podcast off with just a question I have for you. What if I told you that most teams don't fail because of talent, but that they fail because they never clear the buildup? Yes, you heard that right, buildup. So here's something like a quick analogy that I want to start with. So recently, back in July, I did a 30-day Peloton challenge. And recently someone came and I had like an Ask Me Anything day on my Instagram page. And I was telling people, like, ask me any questions that you want to. And someone asked, what's next on your health journey? What's next for you? And one of the things that came to my mind is I'm really considering doing like a juicing type of detox, a juicing type of like way to like just get my health, like snap my health back into place like I wanted it to be, and lose some weight at the same time. And I was thinking about the sacrifices and the things that you have to do in order to detox, and how much better it feels to just really be able to do that after that, right? And so what made me think about was teams and the work that I do each and every day. And one of the things that came up for me was like, you know what? I think teams could benefit from having regular cadence of detoxes as well. Like, no one has really talked about it, and no one has really said like what that actually means. And just like our bodies accumulate toxins and accumulate things that don't do well for our bodies, the same happens with teams. Teams accumulate old habits, like, the things that they've always done, and they continue to do things that way. Or they accumulate unspoken rules, like things that is a rule, like, never show up to a meeting on time. We're always starting 5 minutes after, things like that. Or, attendance, things that have to do with attendance is an unspoken rule as well. Or there's like this unresolved tension that's happening under the surface that's really literally clogging of performance, kind of like fatty tissues and things like that can clog up your blood or clog up your veins and things like that. The same things happen in teams as well. So in this episode, I wanted to talk about why a team detox matters, what they require, and a practical framework for you to go ahead and get started. So let's first kind of zoom out and let's talk about how team culture and systems get shaped in our environment, and what really happens and what do I see in a lot of teams that I work with. So most teams typically inherit old ways of working. So there's these things that they're already naturally going to be doing because there's always residual people or habits or things or beliefs that are left behind. In my coach work, we like to call this ghost. Like, there's some ghosts that are still, right there near the surface, and they are literally still kind of shaping the way that the team works together, or shaping the way work gets done, or shaping the rules or the procedures and things like that. Or it even kind of stops people from making decisions that they should be making, or people pause and question themselves because of these ghosts that are still happening, right? And teams, when they come on board, usually when an individual comes on board into a teams, they start executing tasks individually. Like they have a job description, they come into the work and they're like, you know what? This is the work I'm supposed to do. Someone will teach them how to do it. Someone will show them that old way of working or that typical way that work gets done and accomplished. And that person will just follow along because they're brand new. They don't want to rock the boat, not yet at least. They want to figure out how things are happening. And what happens is there's so much focus on getting someone individually up to speed that we don't think about how do we get them aligned from a collective standpoint. How do we collectively bring them together? And what happens is like there's no shared onboarding process. So you bring somebody new on and they're learning about the system, but the system doesn't try to learn about them at the same time. And so you have these like job descriptions and you have these unspoken rules and you have these things that are happening and no one ever really takes the time to say, look, let me figure this out. Let me figure out if this is actually the way we should continue to do things. Is there a new way? Is there a better way? People just come on individually and do their thing, right? And so now we have this problem. We're already at a problem to start off with. Bringing somebody new on, not onboarding them collectively, and now we're at a place where it's like, oh my God, can I give my own ideas to the team if I'm brand new? Or can I change things up if I think there's a better way? And then the other person is kind of thinking subconsciously, most of the time is like, they need to do it exactly how it's supposed to be done because I don't want them to screw anything up, right? And a lot of times we just don't trust the new people. We just don't, right? And so what happens is we have a level of misalignment that actually is a roadblock to success on a team. It stops teams from being a healthy team, a connected team, a team that is winning in many ways. According to the Harvard Business Review, misalignment and unclear goals account for up to 70% of project failures. You heard that right. 70% of project failures is because people are not aligned and the goals are unclear. And typically that's what happens when somebody new comes together or a team is formed, a team is newly formed. Like there's just 70% of project failures, right? And a lot of times that's kind of expected, like you expect to fail. But 70% is a huge number that we really want to do as much as we can to stop that and to not allow that to be that high of a number, right? Another report from Gallup shows that disengaged employees cost organizations $8.8 trillion globally. And much of this is due to poor collaboration and unclear expectations. So again, when there is misalignment, we are having to pay the price of time, money, energy, and it's just so not worth it if we get in front of it and we try to eliminate all of these things that are happening. See, what people are missing in all of this is that teams often mistake productivity for good health on a team. So if I'm getting you up to speed, if you know what to do, if I'm leading you in the right direction, I'm showing you where you can find things, we look at that as productivity. If meetings get scheduled, so now you have all the meetings on your calendar. If the tasks that you do get checked off, that means that we're being productive. But when I see teams that are not aligned, under the surface, the trust is breaking down. There's a lot of conflicts that are festering and waiting to kind of explode. And then decisions happen typically in silos and typically from the top down. It's not necessarily the person closest to the work. And so when we just keep going and we're allowing all of these things to happen, guess what happens? There's a lot of toxicity that's brewing beneath the surface. There's a lot of toxins that are compounding. It's similar to like if I've put on a lot of weight, I must admit, over the past couple of years, especially in the last year since I haven't been actively going into a workplace every day, that things are starting to compound. My weight is compounding. The fat cells are compounding. The toxins that are probably in my body are also compounding. And the same thing happens with teams when we don't take a step back and we really don't ask ourselves, like, okay, what do I need to be doing differently? Okay, what do I need to shed? What do I need to eliminate? What do I need to add so that I can be functioning at my fullest capacity? Let me tell you the story of this cross-functional team that I worked with. So this team was composed of different departments. All of the departments had a different leader, of course, or a different set of leaders. They had to reach a outcome that the company set, but they all came at it from a different perspective or a different angle, right? And so you have these different teams coming together. They all have a different kind of agenda. And when you put all these leaders together, what teams kind of skip over is identifying who's going to be the clear leader for this newly composed team. And see, we don't think about it this way a lot of times, that this is a new team, because we think, oh, this team has been together for a long time. This other team has been together for a long time. Or we're just coming together. When you pull 2 different teams together, 3 different teams together, it becomes a new team. And at that point, you should be establishing some different sets of agendas and rules and procedures and ways of working together, because now it's a new team. It's not the same, okay? So this team is coming together. They're a cross-functional team. And what I was told when I did some, interviews and some, just kind of like assessments about this team, is that a lot of times they were having meetings where people were talking over one another, or people were extra quiet, or people's ideas were totally disregarded. And some people were just going through the motions. You see those people in the meeting and they're just kind of head nodding and they're just going with through the motions. They really don't have too much to say in the meetings. They just keep going. And it felt like they were working very hard. And yes, they were working very hard to stay above water, because when you're not clear on your goals, when you're not clear on your outcomes, when you don't know who's making decisions, when you don't know who the leader is, it takes so much more energy out of you, right? And so the team started to feel ineffective. Although they were working hard, they didn't feel effective because they had never aligned on how they want to work together. And so what I identified, what I was really thinking about, was when teams don't detox, when they don't kind of get rid of the old environment and create something new, the team starts to kind of operate on autopilot. And instead of like making a new thing happen, they're just recycling the old dysfunction instead of designing like a new collaborative team. And sometimes we do that. It's like we say we're going to give up sweets, right? But then we get a salad and we throw a bunch of junk on top of it. I mean, salad dressing. We want all the meat. We want the croutons. We want the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the onion. We want the blue cheese. We want all the things, right? And so we're telling ourselves that we're eating healthier, but then when we really look at all the calories that are on that salad, we're like, we're actually not really doing better. We're just recycling typically old behaviors, and it looks different, it's presented different, but it's the same old thing, right? So that's the thing we have to be careful of, is that when we start just going on autopilot and we're just doing a thing and we're just like going along to get along or going through the motions, this is what happened to these teams. What I'd like to share with different teams, and I don't necessarily share it in this way, but I'm sharing it with you, my audience, on what I'm doing behind the scenes or what I'm thinking about. So if you were ever working with me, you would know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm looking for in my process. And what I usually try to do is say, okay, how can I do a team detox with this team. And a team detox is really just like I'm looking at the hygiene of the team. So I'm looking at the meeting hygiene, the process hygiene, the decision making hygiene, the productivity hygiene, the hygiene of how we prioritize work. Like I'm looking at hygiene collectively, right? If I'm taking a shower, I'm just not wiping my butt. I'm wiping my feet. I'm wiping behind my ears. I'm wiping my stomach. I'm wiping my back. So I'm looking holistically. If I am in a health journey, I'm not just thinking about what's on the outside. I'm thinking about what goes on in the inside. And so that's how I'm looking at the team is like, how can I make a full detox with this team so that they reach their highest level, positively productive selves where they are functioning at their best. And I just want to say, for me, a detox is not about removing people. It's about removing the buildup, the old ways of working, the ghosts in the system, the things that are happening that are getting in the way of having a truly effective team. And so, what I want you to think about, I want you to think of this as like a quarterly reset. So organizations usually run financial audits, and they do that pretty often at a regular cadence throughout the year. And so I believe teams also need to have some type of collaboration audit. They need to look at how are we collaborating together so that we know what we need to get rid of, what needs to be detoxed, what needs to get removed, right? And I'm not talking about people. We don't need to remove people. We need to change mindsets, behaviors so that we can create a new system or a new way of working. And a detox in this instance helps the team pause. It helps them question some of the assumptions that they have about the team, and they reset so that the dysfunction doesn't become a part of the culture or the system, or that's how we always do things, right? So we want to eliminate that, especially when you have new people. If you're bringing new people or you're creating a new team, there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of just like possibility for something new to deliver results quicker, faster, cheaper, efficient. And so we want to bring all of that diversity into the room. But if we don't detox, we're just piling it on old behaviors and old stuff. And we're actually not losing the weight that we need to. And so the way that I walk teams, or I'm thinking about this through the lens of my facilitation or my guidance or my coaching with teams, is I look at three things. I look at outcome, alignment, and retrospectives. Outcomes, alignment, and retrospectives. This is how I help teams detox, okay? So let's walk through what these things mean. So outcomes, the first thing is outcomes. So I want to anchor the team to their value and what they're bringing, what they're shifting, what they're changing, not just the task, okay? And so we want, as a team, as an example, we want to deliver clarity to clients versus sending status updates, right? Who cares about the status updates? Like, I won't say who does, who cares about it, because people do care about where things are in the process and how much longer things have to go. But that is a task. It sounds much better when I know that I am always going to deliver clarity to clients. Sometimes that's going to be in status updates, and sometimes it's going to be in financial updates, or, it's going to look different. It's not always going to look the same. And so we want to make sure that we anchor on what's the value that I'm bringing to this client, right? Because also when you're thinking about value, it just inspires you more. It motivates you more. It makes you feel more like you're doing something and you're making an impact on the client, the customer, the world, the project, the process, whatever it is. And so I'm looking, what value is this team bringing? If I'm only working on tasks and I'm thinking only about tasks, like sending status updates, I start doing things where I'm going through the motion, but it really doesn't bring the benefit that I'm actually really looking for. Okay. So outcomes is the first thing. I want to make sure teams have outcomes. If you don't have an outcome, we need to go through that. We need to comb through that and figure out what are the outcomes your team is anchoring to. The second thing is alignment. Now, when I'm talking about alignment, I am talking about moving beyond service level agreement into explicit norms around decision making, around communication, and around conflict resolutions. The problem with alignment is people think alignment means agreement. I do not need to agree with you, but I need to align to the same North Star that we are headed to. Okay. I don't need to agree about, decisions get made from the manager. I need to align that the type of decisions we make are decisions that have to do with the financial outcome of the company, right? And so that's the difference. I really want you to really think about, am I trying to force alignment? Am I trying to force agreement, or is aligning good enough? Right? Alignment is much better because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and I might not agree with how you skin a cat, but we are going to be aligned that cat needs to be skinned. And so I just want us to remind ourselves and think about that. So outcomes, number one, alignment. Number two, last one, retrospectives. I love retrospectives because this gives us a regular cadence where we reflect as a team, and the team gets to learn and iterate instead of repeating mistakes. A lot of times teams stay in the same sunken place that they've always been in because they don't reflect back. They don't learn from their mistakes. They don't iterate. They don't experiment and find out what they can learn from the experiment. It's interesting that in science, there's always this process of experimentation. But when we talk about business, when we talk about operations, when we talk about just basic corporate environments that are not in necessarily science or places where there's a lot of research happening, we just forget that everything is an experiment, and we should experiment because that's how we learn. You didn't do things the first time. You experiment and you tried a different way. And that is what I'm looking for. How can this team look back and reflect so they aren't bringing ghosts, they aren't bringing new, the old ways of working into a new space. So those three things, outcomes, alignment, and retrospectives, are what I am looking for and what I am looking to see. Do we need to do some type of detox to ensure that these things are on point? Now, here's what I am seeing. What I'm seeing in a lot of teams is leaders are still the bottleneck of decisions, and it's slowing teams down. I'm seeing teams work on tasks without a clarity of purpose, and then it's creating a duplication of work. And I'm seeing that there aren't retrospectives happening at all. And if they're happening, they're so far away. It's like twice a year, right? And you've done tons of different projects and different work for the entire year, but they may only do it once or twice a year. And they focus on blaming other people instead of learning. We start blaming, we start saying, oh, this shouldn't have happened, or this person shouldn't have did this, blah, 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 blah. And it's because we never look back to learn from it, right? And so this matters. It matters that we do look at our outcomes, how we align, and our retrospectives, because if we don't check it at the door, the teams will start to normalize dysfunction. It'll be okay to have a meeting after the meeting. It'll be okay to talk about somebody after you walk away. It'll be okay not to give feedback the way you should. And instead of feeling enthusiastic and positive and excited about work, you start feeling drained, right? And when that happens, you are literally cutting off the part of your brain that creates, that innovates, that knows how to deal with problems, and you continue to be in this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state, right? When you are in a period of dysfunction or you're drained at work every day. And the impact of that is People start to disengage, talented employees start to leave. And it's not necessarily because of the work, but it's because work isn't getting done as efficiently and effectively as it could be. And so that's a problem, and it's something to really watch out for. All right, so let me give you just a quick example of what a mini team detox would look like. So if I'm walking into a team, one of the first things that I want to ask, or I'm asking them, are what are your outcomes? And this is really being clear about defining what success looks like in terms of the value, in terms of the impact that you're going to make, right? So it's less about, if this was a weight loss or exercise example, it's less about I'm going to lose 10 pounds and more about I am going to be able to run with my children without getting tired fast. And this is exactly what my thoughts were when I was doing my 30-day Peloton challenge. I was really like, you know what? I want to get on the Peloton, not necessarily so I can lose weight at the time, but it was like, I'm tired of being tired. When I walk up the stairs, I'm out of breath. I'm always exhausted. I'm not thinking straight. And just that time, those 30 days on my Peloton did so much for me. I remember like before getting on my Peloton, before this challenge, I had went to Atlanta to go visit my daughter's college. And I was exhausted every day in that heat. Recently, I went back to Atlanta and I was just walking in the heat. It was fine. I was okay because I had trained my body to do something different. And so when we're talking about outcomes, we're talking about this value, the impact that it's going to have that's beyond just the goal. It just feels more inspiring and motivating. And so that's the first thing that I always look for in a team. Are you doing work just to do work? Do you know why you're doing the work? Or is it something that is meaningful and that's going to keep you going? The second thing is let's build alignment. So we're going to establish explicit norms, looking at how do we make decisions? How do we handle conflict? How do we communicate between meetings? These are some of the things that I'm thinking about. And the reason why I want us to get very explicit here is because a lot of times we have these implied rules and behaviors and ways of being in a relationship, and it's so surface level, or it causes so many assumptions that we just don't, we're just not connected like we should be. And whenever there's assumptions, you know what the saying goes, you're making an ass out of you and me. And so we don't want nobody to be making an ass out of themselves, right? So let's build alignment by establishing explicit norms. And the third thing is run retrospectives. So we're going to create a space to review some progress. We're going to look at what worked, where did we get stuck, and what will we do differently next time, next cycle, next quarter, right? Those three questions. What worked? Where did I get stuck? And what will we do differently next time? This is so important because according to data, agile teams, who are the teams that typically use retros, but every team can use these, when they run consistent retros, it improves delivery predictability by 20 to 25%. It means like you're going to finish. You're actually going to be successful when you run consistent retros because you're always learning. Like, can you imagine if I was on the Peloton and I didn't reflect on how it was making me feel, how it made me feel better? I actually did a LinkedIn Live on this, on what it taught me, and just looking back in my reflections from that period of time. And so it's the same thing that I want you to do for yourself. So in closing, here is what I want you to know. Toxins on a team don't just clear miraculously. In your body, it doesn't clear miraculously. You got to exercise, drink your water, and mind your business, like Sarah Jakes would say. But no, seriously, like, toxins have to be intentionally cleared out. And so whether that is in your body, on your team, if you ignore it, it's only going to make things worse. And so you want to look at it, you want to reflect on it, you want to kind of analyze all those toxins that are happening and take notice and do something about it. And so I want to ask you, as we close, What old habits, what unspoken rules, or missing patterns is your team holding on to that it's time to release? I'll say it again. What old habits, unspoken rules, or meeting patterns is your team holding on to that it's time to release? What are those ghosts? What are those toxic behaviors? What are those things in the system that you just need to get away, like get rid of and just release? I want you to truly think about that. And I want to encourage you also to take one piece of what I talked about today, maybe running a mini retrospective, and just do it and see how it works for your team. And then I want to invite you, share your biggest team toxin on my LinkedIn, on my Instagram, and, just let me know. What are you working on? What are you trying to remove on your team? Last question before we leave. What does leadership beyond the title look like to you? Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to Leadership Beyond the Title podcast. If today's episode moved you, sparked a new idea, or challenged your perspective, share with a friend and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. But before you go, take a moment to reflect. What does leadership beyond the title mean to you? How are you already living it? And where might you lean in just a little bit more? And if you're ready to step into leadership that's rooted in your values, amplifies your voice, and positions you as the go-to leader in your field, check the show notes to learn how we can work together. Keep showing up, keep leading, just as you are, with leadership beyond the title.